episode 15. And yeah, it's been a little while. So thanks for coming back. I've got the one and only. Oh, he's over here. The man himself.
What's up, everybody? Greg here. I'm ready to do this with you guys. I know it's been a while. Life happens, it gets kind of crazy, but we're going to keep up with the podcast. So, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I think we all have a little bit of lulls and we all go through it, and it's nice to sometimes take a break. So we thought we would kind of do a little bit of a review. I mean, it's not going to be as much of a showcase, but it's going to be, a review of where's the podcast, how far has it come? What are our expectations for it? What do we want from it in the future? Maybe update you guys a little bit on our collections, which, I finally did what Greg asked me to do and counted up all my cards. What is this, like 6 months after you asked me to do it?
Yeah,
so
got around to it.
I did. Yeah. Well, I've been databasing my collection. And so I figured, because I had all the information in front of me, I mean, honestly, it's kind of give or take, but it was pretty close to that number. So I feel pretty confident about that. But, I guess first question, over 6 months ago, Greg, you said, hey, let's throw up a podcast about the 90s. And I said, hey, that would be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of people that are going to want to listen to it. I mean, we're up to over 230 subscribers now. I think that's a pretty significant number for something so specific. We're not sitting here just talking about baseball cards in general, which is just a massive topic. I think we're on a specific topic, and so far we're reaching plenty of people. I think we're at around 300 views per episode. How do you feel about the idea now, six months later?
Well, I'm glad that we did it, and I give a lot of credit to you because I'm great at coming up with ideas, but then I kind of just let them sit in my head and they never pan out. So you were kind of like the action man in all this. So while I was thinking of great things, they were just going to stay in my head, obviously. So I give a lot of credit to you for helping us get this ball rolling. Because honestly, it would have never came to fruition if it was up to me. So it's been a great partnership with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've helped get us going when everybody's kind of slowing down or when we're all like mulling about. And you've been a good organizer for that. So I think certain things like this can take more than one person to get it working. Yeah. And in this instance, for sure, we needed more than one person. So I'm definitely glad that you and I were able to get this kick started. And I've had a lot of fun. One of the main points of the podcast was getting to know the people behind the group, because you see posts every day from certain people and you get to know them, but not personally. You see like a paragraph or you see a sentence from somebody. You can click on their profile and see a picture of them and kind of think about who they are, but that is usually the extent of where a lot of these groups go. So I was thinking, well, man, I would really like to know or just hear from some of these people because they have awesome collections and we're like-minded. We're baseball card collectors, we're 90s collectors, we're player collectors. So there's definitely stuff for us to talk about, but it's hard to type that stuff out and it's hard to communicate in that form. So I was thinking, well, man, it would be nice to just talk to people on a podcast. It may not necessarily be the same person. It could be somebody different, which is what I wanted. And so we kind of get to know everybody who is like a player in the group. So we can kind of get an idea of who they are, what they collect, their passions, and just get to know them. Like that's what I wanted to do is the group is only as strong as how involved people are. Right. So getting to know people puts it on a personal level. Definitely. So then it might go beyond baseball cards. It might be, how's your life going? How are things going? At the podcast, it's got you and me a lot closer. So definitely, it's a thing with Alan. Like we just we start to talk to guys about different things, not even baseball cards. So you're kind of forming friendships with the podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's had a lot of unintended side effects with it, and it's been really cool because it's got a lot of us closer, and it's got a lot of us more informed, more knowledgeable. There's just a lot going on with the podcast that it's been great.
No, I think you hit right on the head with a bunch of those things. I mean, you were very enthusiastic about the idea, and I had already started, because I had hit you up, I don't know what, a month before that, and it was like, hey, let's just chat cards, man. And it was very natural, our conversation. I think we're kind of on the same level when it comes to how we collect and what we love about collecting. And so, it was like, let's find some like-minded people. And man, it's really gone way beyond that. We haven't had the chance to have everybody on here from the group. Obviously, it's very tough to do that. I think some people aren't as used to being on camera, but some people have done it for the first time, and I thought they've been great. And yeah, the relationships. I mean, geez, that was probably the most unexpected things. I mean, we went from saying let's do a podcast to let's go, live in Chicago for 3 nights and go to the National and experience that. I mean, I think we're finally recovered from that. I mean, maybe not, who knows, but.
I don't think we're necessarily recovered. I just think we went so hard that a lot of guys I noticed are kind of laying low.
Yeah.
Myself included, where I think a little bit of a break is needed and necessary to kind of reinvigorate the passion. Because we went so hard and so heavy so quickly for that week that I think you just kind of get, no matter what it is, you kind of get overloaded, exhausted, and you need a little bit of a break. I don't know, just because I'm laying low for a little bit doesn't mean I'm out. It just means I'm just getting life sorted. I'm taking a break, and I'll come back and look at my cards and be like, man, I forgot how awesome these were. And then I'll get back into it. It's just a cycle. I think everybody kind of goes through certain periods where they put their cards aside and do something else. Like I've been playing some Xbox games and just kind of chilling out, watching some shows that I haven't got around to watching, and just taking a little bit of a break. I'll still check eBay. I'll still check for Tim Salmon.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen.
yeah, it's hard not to, because it's so ingrained in your head to, like, you need to check eBay and see if the blue dot's up. So it's hard not to do that, and it doesn't take much time. You're sitting on the toilet or you're at work and you look at eBay and see what's up, if anything new. And I'll still do that, and I'll check my set needs to see if anything has popped up. But other than that, I'm not like scrolling heavy like I used to. And that's just because I'm in that little bit of a cycle. It's kind of getting cold, and I'm doing other things, but I'll get back, and then it'll just be, like I never skipped a beat.
It's something that I think important that you should bring up. Hey, I'm going to do this because you like it so much. Hey, look, it doesn't cover anybody up. Isn't that a thing of beauty? Your face isn't covered up. What's up, King Griffey Jr. Collector? He actually does a pretty good job with his videos. His lighting is great. It's an interesting thing you bring up, because I think before you and I started talking, I'd had these phases where I would have lulls. I would still look on eBay, but I would have my cards. This is before my collection was over like 200, so it was a little bit smaller, and it was in a box and it stayed there. And I just I would have lulls, like I wasn't in the Facebook group. I was on Freedom Cardboard, and nothing was really getting me motivated. And then all of a sudden, you know how it is. You pick up one card on eBay, and then you're like, well, maybe I should look for this one. And then you've picked up 5, and now you're heavy into it. So I would go through lulls all the time. And I think it's natural that it happens. I could kind of feel it happening right after the National, but on the other hand, because all of our lives are different, I got on a little bit of a Pacific craze, so I really hit it hard a couple weeks ago during my birthday, and I, enjoyed it. Found a bunch, because I found stuff I didn't know about. I think that was the biggest thing. Yeah. Somebody posted something, I found something I didn't know about, and that's what this podcast I think has done really well for some people. It's like we talk about a couple of cards, 2-3 cards, and these people either that don't know about the 90s or aren't as informed as we are, like we were when we first got into it, are like, oh man, I got to go check these out. And then they just go down the rabbit hole, man, and they start picking stuff up. And so I think that's definitely happened to me. but lulls will definitely happen for sure. Post Christmas maybe. But do you feel like? I mean, let's take a look at what we've accomplished so far, because I think when you said let's do this podcast, I mean, I really didn't have a idea in my head about the format that it would be, really. So you and me, and then Rodney had kind of helped us out with putting the structure of it together. What is it going to look like? And it's different than what we planned at first, because we're like, we're going to stick to half hour to 45 minutes. We're going to be very thorough. And I mean, for me personally, I've loved where the conversations have naturally gone on a lot of our podcasts. So what do you think so far? Are you pretty happy with how it's gone?
So originally at the very beginning, like I've said a few times, my cousin has a podcast, and they usually have like the same 4 or 5 people every week. And so that's kind of, I really like that, because I feel like just having 1 or 2 people, you either run out of content or you start blabbering, but you get a conversation going, and I like that. And that's why I originally wanted to have a 3-person or 4-person minimum,
right,
for the podcast. But then when it kind of evolved, as the idea process was going, and we started getting into like, we can have like a guest a guest or 2 every week. That's when I really like got on board with that idea versus the standard crew every week. I'd much rather have somebody new, because that kind of keeps it fresh and exciting. So it's not the same guys over and over. You're getting a different take, a different collection, a different spin on things. So that's when I really got excited for that idea, because it wasn't really in my head to do that at first. But once we got into that idea phase and started getting into action, that's when I got excited, because I started thinking about, we're going to have all these collectors from the group on the podcast. And that's when you start to think about getting to know those people. And I've been really happy with the way it's going. So what originally is now something way better, in my opinion.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of glad we went in that direction versus the normal, like, you see the same 4 people every.
This is, speaking of fun collectors that would be fun to have on the show, I believe this is Christian, is it not, from our group?
Yeah, that's the Tino guy, right?
Yeah, and the Tino replaced the Tim Salmon banner. Sorry, dude, it was up there for like 2 months. I was trying to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
But
somebody who's peaking right now. So.
Yeah, he's one thing that's awesome about to kind of springboard off of his post, Christian, is he is a lot like us in the sense that he can like focus in on one card and appreciate its whether it's the way that it looks, it's the intricacies of it, the numbering, just anything, the design. He does what we, I think, are trying to get collectors to do a little bit more. I mean, I don't think there's another card podcast in the world that's shown a Focus Pocus and talked about it nearly as much as ours for a card that's so simple to find. We're trying to appreciate the intricacies of cards, and I think we've really accomplished that through getting different people on the podcast. And I was like you at first. We were really trying to get like you, me, and we had Rodney and a couple other guys that were like every 2 weeks. Let's plan on it. And I noticed nobody was like, I really can't commit to something like that, because we're all busy. We're all in different time zones. I'm all the way over here in Alaska, so it's like I'm always going to be the earliest, easiest to make things work, whereas you guys are all over the place. So I think it's ended up going a lot better than I expected. I think people are enjoying meeting new people from the group and getting a different perspective on collecting, because I don't think any person we've had on has been the same as the other. So that's been really cool, especially for you and me, guys. We want to meet people, and we've certainly had the chance to do that so far. So,
when we started the podcast, I think we had like 350 people, or the group had 350 people, and now it's over like 500. So it's almost doubled, less than half, but it's almost doubled in that short time frame of just making this podcast. So that has added a whole new, group of people. Some maybe just spectators, some maybe people who get involved. There are numerous people that have come from the YouTube community to the group.
Right.
So you're kind of expanding that, fan base, and the group is, and that's what you want. You want that group to be as many hardcore 90s collectors as possible. So it's the place to be, and you're not, it's hard to, when you're looking for something or you're showing off something, it really sucks to have to go to 3 different places to post stuff. And it would be nice to have like the group where everybody's there, and that can just be the hangout,
Right.
So I really like that the group is expanding for the better. So that way we can all share stuff in the group and know it's hitting like the demographic that we want it to hit. All the 90s collectors can appreciate the 90s cards, and you're not trying to weed through everything else. So that's been nice, and it's the Facebook group has grown so much.
Yeah, man, it
over the
has.
last 6 months.
I think we found lots of people from all walks of life that have it's really cool to see how many incredible 90s collections are out there. We've got guys coming in with mirror golds all the way down to guys that are coming in that are excited about getting into the hobby in only 90s, which, honestly, I think without podcasts like these and the group like we have, we still got the Freedom cardboard thread and the blowout thread that 90s people throw cards into, but most of those people are in the group anyway. So I think those places, the group and the podcast have honestly, I think, grown the appreciation for the hobby. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to do. Kind of looking forward, I kind of think about, would I change anything about the podcast? Is it good how it's going? I think it's pretty dang good with the format that it's at. Obviously you make some tweaks along the way, but I think looking at it, people enjoy that we mix it up. We don't do the same thing every week. We don't just do showcase to show cards and talk about them. We really focus in on specific topics. And then sometimes, when we're like, man, what do we talk about today? Like, I got a couple things, but sometimes we're just like, let's just show off some cards. We've done that a couple times, and both formats work. So I think I'm really excited to see where it goes. What about you? What are you thinking about the next 6 months? We're halfway to a year now. So what do you think?
Well, like you were saying, the best thing about this podcast is it's not one thing specifically. So it's not a format that we're stuck with, the formulaic episode. It could be us showing off cards. It could be us talking to somebody. It could be us doing an interview. It could be whatever we want it to be. And that was one of my main ideas that I feel like has stuck. I didn't want it to be one thing in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're more of the organizer, and I'm more of the like laid back, like let's just talk about the weather,
Yeah.
So I like to have that for this podcast, because then that means if we just want to, chit chat with each other, put somebody on the other end and just talk with them about whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be an interview. We can do that if we want. And that's what I like about this is for the future, I still want it to be whatever it is for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately people get bored with the same stuff over and over again. So when we put this up, nobody knows, am I going to be joking around showing Muhammad Ali cards? Are you going to be interviewing somebody? Who knows what we're going to do? And so that's what I like. I like just the spontaneity of an episode. Like, what is this episode going to have? Who knows? So I'd like to continue that for the future, and just what we got is what we got for the day, and everybody enjoy it. So that's just my future plan for this is just keep going. Ultimately, you and I have talked about having like some big time interviewees up here, and that would be awesome.
Right.
So maybe one episode we have that, and maybe the next we do a live skit show where I'm dressing up as a clown. Who knows?
Well, I mean, Halloween is coming up, so we could do an episode with our costumes on. That could be fun, as long as somebody could hear what we're saying. But no, I think I agree, man. I'm excited to see where it goes because it doesn't have to go any specific direction. I think we have the freedom to play around a little bit. And I think people like that too. And so hopefully those interviews can happen. I know I emailed you. I got a pretty decent one lined up in the future for next month. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're working on trying to get some of our favorite storage suppliers on here to talk a little bit about where they came up with those ideas. So that'll be fun to see where that goes. But as you know, I mean, it would be a dream of mine to get a designer from Pacific or Donruss on here just to talk to them. I know Rodney would be chomping at the bit to get at a Donruss designer to talk about Crusades and all those other awesome cards that they came up with. But I feel the same way, man. I know I've been doing a little bit of the side credentials thing because you've been a bit busier and it's been hard to like really get a podcast nailed down. So I figured those could be a fun way to just have like those conversations we used to have when I would call you up and we would just talk nonsense and cards for like half hour, 45 minutes. I thought, well, how about trying those out and seeing if people like them? I think they're decent. It'd be fun to continue that. Just, bringing guys on that want to talk about a couple of specific topics, but not necessarily as a structured podcast. So I've kind of played around with that a little bit. Obviously, you and I got to do one because people got to see the kind of stuff that we talk about when we're not on a podcast. It's pretty funny when it's a little more loose. But I think I'm really, really happy with where it's gone so far. And I never thought, last year that I'd actually be hosting a podcast with you. That would with anybody, let alone somebody I get along with. But yeah.
Well, I remember I used to listen to Kevin Smith's podcast. It's been a while since I've listened to any of his stuff, but he used to be an advocate of like anybody can do this. You just have to start talking and press record. And so he was right. It's not hard. You talk and people listen if they want to. It's fun. It's a way to vent. It's a way to get to know people. It's a way to just talk about the things that you're passionate about.
Right.
So whether you're doing the side credentials or we're doing the actual podcast, like it's just fun to talk with people about the things that you like and the things that they like. So they keep doing the side credentials and we'll keep doing the podcast and, just keep going from there. But going back to like the lull of where I'm at, because I kind of wanted to talk about it real quick. I think I started back up in 2017 collecting, and I obviously had nothing, and so I'm at a point now where like I have a large portion of Tim Salmon cards. Mm-hmm. Like there are very few rare Tim Salmon cards that I don't have. And they don't pop up very often. So when they do, I get them. But I think my Tim Salmon collection has reached a point where it's kind of took me into a lull because there's not a lot of stuff out there for me to obtain. I can always go for the base cards and the parallels and all that. But that's not what I want my collection to be. I don't want to have 3,000 Tim Salmon cards and they're half of them are base. I started that way and I realized it wasn't doing anything for me. So I didn't enjoy it. I don't want to do something that I don't want this to be a job. I don't want this to be a chore. I want this to be a passionate hobby for me. So I don't want those in my collection because they just take up space for me. And I realized that. So I'm at the point now where if there aren't any rare Tim Salmon cards, then I'm kind of just sitting twiddling my thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, the chicken or the egg. Was I burned out or have I just run out of Tim Salmon cards to collect? So I've been thinking about what, am I going to focus back on Frank? Because Frank is my favorite player. Just Tim Salmon is easier for me to collect. And I'm a huge Tim Salmon fan, but the White Sox and Frank has always been my go-to. He's just more expensive, so that's kind of what's kept me away from it. So
Right.
I start to think, do I want to get back into that? Because there are a ton of Franks that I don't have, and he's in way more stuff than Tim Salmon. So it's just kind of been a thought process for me. Like, what do I want to do? I've been focusing on it, one of my 97 sets, just because there's not a lot of Tim Salmon out there, and I've kind of been chilling out with my purchases. So it's just been a thinking process of what I want to do next, because at some point I'm going to run out of Tim Salmon cards, which I kind of feel is happening. And I'm sure for A-Rod, you got more than me to go after, but you have a lot. You have 640, and a lot of them are rare. So you start to reach that point, and everybody, even like Griffey and Frank collectors, start to reach that point where they have everything or have a majority of it. So what next? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I did want to post this comment. I think this is pretty cool. We've seen some really cool stuff posted from him, and he's a Griffey collector who's just new getting into it. So he's probably where you and I were like a year ago, 2 years ago, where he just sees everything. Chaz sees everything out there, and he's able to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna grab this, grab this, grab this. He's got his top 10 list. I'm approaching what you're going through, and as we saw last time you showed it, you got your mountaintop card, your peak of the Mount Everest card. And I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen in the back of my mind, because for me, even if I do pick up my mountaintop card, there's plenty of them out there to chase. That card was close to almost the last real big one you needed. I mean, I know there's a couple you're still chasing for Tim, but it's hard to like hit that peak and then also stay motivated. It's like, okay, well, you literally got the red Crusade and the 24 karat within a month of each other. And I know, right? It's amazing how that happened. It was so cool. But to think that you can stay motivated when I'm sure when you're looking at Tim Salmon listings, you're not seeing anything new hardly at all. And so I think that being said, it definitely makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see what you decide to do collections. I know you're coming up with some really cool sets, and I myself, when I was going through all my cards yesterday, or at least my newer purchases, I found a couple Pacific sets. I'm like, I would like to put this whole set together because it's so unique and it's not expensive. It's just hard to track them down. And so I really was sitting back and going, you know what? If I get to a point where I think my collection is pretty much good, minus like some base and some really expensive cards, maybe I focus on some sets, and you've started to do that. And I know I give you a hard time for like focusing on like 567 different players that you like, but no, seriously, you've got options now. You've kind of, the Tim Salmon collection is at a really good place, but now you've got Frank, and then you've got other players that you liked, like, Nomar, and then, some other players and so forth. And then you're set. So you've got options still, and I think as collectors, we've got to find something to keep us, invigorated and passionate about collecting. And so I think looking back on that, I'm starting to approach the point where it's like, you know what? I think that I need to do something similar. I looked into Ray Ordonez cards because I liked the guy. I thought he was an amazing defender. He's in a lot of cool sets. But then I realized half the stuff I need of A-Rod he has. I'm like, no, I'm not picking that up until I have Alex in those things. So I was like, nope, forget about it. Yeah. It made me mad. It'd be like when I was looking at Tim Salmon, I'm like, wait, the red label, gold label is $10. Like, all right, get out of here. Like, it's it was kind of funny.
I'll tell you, if you can find a player that is in a bunch of that stuff, that's a low-level guy, you'll amass like some really rare cards for cheap that, the A-Rod and the Frank and the Griffey cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars that you could get for $15. And it's really cool to look at those cards. That's why I love my Tim Salmon collection, because these cards, I would never be able to have the Frank Thomas, it would cost so much money. So to have them and just be able to look at them in hand is really cool. And I will always be an advocate of having like a lesser player collection. I'm not saying avoid the bigger guys. I'm just saying on the side, get you a little guy so you can have those cool cards that you may never be able to have big guys. And it's funny you say Ray Ordonez, because my best friend as a kid was a Ray Ordonez collector. That was his guy was Ray Ordonez. Mine was Frank, his Ray. So it's funny you say that because it brings back a lot
The
of
contrast, dude.
Ray Ordonez.
It's like the flip side of you and me, you know, because I have to literally, if I see a card that I like and I will ask, it's like, hey, is Tim in this? You say, yeah, I paid $4 for that. I'm like, oh boy, man, this card's already at 30, you know, like, for instance, you look at that. I was just talking to Kyle about this the other day, or Andy, excuse me, that 2K plus die cut of A-Rod, I paid what I thought was a ridiculous amount. And then Kyle paid more for his, and it wasn't even numbered to his jersey. And then you at the National, we're going through a box, you find the Vlad for $1. You know what I mean? Like it's just but I mean, it was an awesome steal. Like that guy had no clue what he had, obviously, but I think it's amazing to see the disparity in prices. And I think when I'm able to get, you know, maybe a few more of the rarer ones, I might go dabble in Ray Ordonez or something once I have them. But it's like, I don't want to be sitting at looking at a Ray Ordonez 24 karat when I really want the A-Rod way more. So it's one of those things where I have to, I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer to do it. But there's definitely a couple Pacific sets that I've noticed since I've really been hitting that, going after that company's cards big time, that I'm like, I would love to see like every player lined up on the wall of that same set, you know. So, and it's definitely affordable. That's one thing that I have to look at, because you're doing the credential set, you know, you did the hot commodities with the die cuts or whatever. That was a really cool set from Upper Deck. Which one was it?
Yeah,
the orange one.
Yeah, so the Upper Deck hot commodities. Then I like doing those little sets that are, you know, cards $5 or $2. If it's a really cool set, I don't care about the rarity or the price. I would like to have the set. So I've got one or two sets I put aside that are like that I'm still working on, but I've kind of focused on the credentials right now. And I'd say I'm like 55% done with it.
Okay. That's going to look awesome when it's done, dude. I can't wait to see it. You know, Andy brought up a topic that we've talked about a lot, having some kind of 90s museum. I don't know if you watched that episode that much, because it was a bit of a longer one, but we had fun. But he's like, we need like a 90s museum, you know? And I was like, all right, I know, right? Like right over there is Tim Salmon. So you can look at every Tim Salmon card from the 90s. You've got Cal Ripken, about 4 or 5 guys here. You've got your Griffey guys, your Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, all these big-time Barry Bonds, all these big-time 90s guys, Roger Clemens, and everybody represented within that, like a big showcase type museum thing or whatever. It'd be so cool, man, because I feel like with us, you look at a card that everybody has of their player, but everybody's got a different story behind why they like it or where they got it. And I don't know if it's like that with the modern guys, really. You know, I got another Mike Trout auto. I got it in a case break. Like, oh, cool, whatever. Next. So I think we're very fortunate that we have, you know, collections that all have so many stories, dude, and they're amazing to see where they're at. Like, speaking of that, I'm curious. You kind of said it already. I'm at, I think, around 640 unique cards. I have very few doubles. I don't do doubles. I don't see the point in having them. I'd rather have other A-Rod collectors have them. So where are you at with your Tim Salmon collection? What's your Tim Salmon number right now?
Unique cards, I am at 698.
Nice. That's awesome.
So I'm two away from 700, and then my Frank, I'm at 678.
Wow. Well, and that collection started out, like I think you were telling me, you bought a huge base card lot of Frank, right? And then you decided I'm going elsewhere, right? With the answers.
Well, like I was at that point where I was collecting both. I was getting overwhelmed. You know, I wanted everything. So I think at that point I was still doing like all Tim Salmon cards and all Frank Thomas cards. And so somebody presented a lot, and we went back and forth on the price for like a month, and finally nobody was buying it from him. So he gave me like a way lower price, and I agreed to it. And I thought he was going to send me like 200 cards, and he ended up sending me like 800. And so I was not
dude.
like got like I had 2 boxes from the post office, and they were like legit big boxes of Frank Thomas stuff. And so I was amazed that because he showed me like a chunk of it, and I thought that was all of it, but he had like so much more that he sent. And so I ended up with a ton of Frank. Like without that lot, I would probably be at like 200 or so. So he put me at 678. There were a lot of doubles, you know, and I still have them. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with them. I've sold a lot of stuff, but everything that's left is just like that mass produced 90s, you know, double that there's not much to do with them.
Right.
But I ended up transitioning because I've got so many like boxes of stuff and storage. I ended up moving away from the white 3-row board boxes, and I put all my Franks, like all the non-rare and non-favorite Franks, I put in a binder, and then everything else I have in my cool storage box, the Frank Griffey storage box. So
right.
I've kind of got my storage in a place where I'm happy, and it took a while, and I bought some expensive boxes, but I'm finally at a place where I don't have any white cardboard boxes right here in my area. It's all like wood boxes or custom boxes, and it's really awesome. It's a great feeling to have all these, and so it makes me look at them more. It makes me appreciate them, and it doesn't just look like an office with a bunch of white storage boxes. They all have like legit logos and pictures, and it's really cool. I like coming into the office and seeing all that stuff. So it adds a lot to my collection. Just those storage boxes add a lot to my collection that otherwise was just like white stacked boxes, you know.
Well, right. I've told you I've been using these for a while, which I kind of like because you can see the cases inside there. But I've been waiting to go because I can't decide, you know, where to go, whether I go with what you're doing, because at least you have boxes that you can look in and they have awesome pictures on them. And if anybody wants to know, you know, go back and watch the Tanner Jones episode because we really show that stuff off. At least you two guys do in that episode. Right. And then we've had, you know, actually, speaking of which, Josh, what's up, dude? He bought one of those boxes, one of the wood ones with the designs on them, and it looks great. I think those are super, super cool. And I think I've been thinking hard about, okay, I can't display every card. If one day I do get a big, huge shelf, like 5 of those shelves behind you, and I just do like a big row and they're all displayed, I still have to have some in boxes. I mean, it would be cool to have a box on like the bottom shelf that's got an amazing design that is a display in itself. And so, that's a good point that you bring up. I think it's tough when you look at the 90s because it can get really overwhelming if you just come in and you're new and you say, okay, I'm collecting Greg Maddux, you know, and he's on everything as far as when it comes to insert sets. He was in everything. And you have to really decide where you're going to target your cards because you can just get lost looking for stuff quite easily. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, I would definitely agree. Like, you always need to, at the beginning, no matter who you are, it's overwhelming because there's just so much, and you got to really focus in on what your goals are and what you want to do, or otherwise you'll just be spending tons of money and you'll get you'll be getting tons of mail days, and it gets overwhelming. So I do appreciate going through that. That was fun. But I also liked each experience that's come afterwards, which, you know, I was in a storage, instead of buying cards, I was buying these boxes. And in the back of my head, I was like, man, I could be getting cool cards. But now with hindsight, you know, I'm glad I got these boxes because I'm really proud of them and they're really cool to look at. And there's so much more eye appeal me to look at these and see, you know, the cool designs and the cool pictures. And the wooden boxes, they only hold about 102 mags. So I would definitely And then for like the smaller collectors, you get one or two of those boxes and you can hold about 200 cards. But Jason was actually the one who turned me on to the mag case, which are those huge boxes that I have. And I have one that holds 325 mags and another that holds 250. Mm-hmm. Those, I think I would recommend those over the wood ones just because they have like hinges on them. They're a little more higher quality, and you can put whatever picture is feasible and high quality on top of them. You can make them green, you can make them blue, the whole box. They'll change the whole color of the box if you want.
Nice.
So there's a lot more customizable options for them. I love the wood boxes, but I've transitioned from my rare cards to the mag cases, and then I have like base stuff and lower and inserts in my wood boxes. So that's just kind of where I've transitioned to. But I'm at a point now, like I said, where I've got some extra room in every box. So I'm not at max. For a while, I was at max capacity, and
I remember
to buy another box.
Yeah, right.
And so I was like stuck. Now I can do what I feel like I have room to breathe and room to grow. So I'm not like limiting myself because I'm out of room. I've come to a place where I have room for growth, and so it feels comfortable. And I'm glad, looking back with the money that I've spent, I'm glad that I got those cases, because it's been nice to kind of turn my office into something new with them. So it's just been an unintended side effect of collecting that I'm glad I found and came across.
Yeah, same to me. I'm glad that you found it, because I've been waiting to buy it, to buy a box like that. Because my collection has grown so significantly. I felt like if I had gotten a box, it'd be full, and then it'd be like half full, especially with, I think, half of my collection, probably in mags at least. So now that I know how many, now I know how many I'm going to need, how big of a box I'm going to need to fit all the mags in there and still have room. You don't want to run out and be like, well, now I got to get another one. So it's allowed me to game plan. I think a few people for sure have seen those and tried and bought those boxes, thanks to you giving them a shout out on the podcast. So got to be thankful for that. We take payments if you ever see the podcast, whoever those people are. But no, anyways, that's really cool, Greg. I think your passion for collecting has always kind of kept me invigorated at times where I'm kind of like, oh man, I just missed out on this card. You're like, don't worry about it. Check out these boxes, like shiny object. Look at this. And so yours are pretty neat, man. I was thinking to myself while you were talking, like, what pictures would I even use? Because there's so many to choose from, but eventually I'll have to do it. You know me, my goal is to have, I want to wake up and I want to see this massive shelf in front of my bed when I wake up and just have all my cards displayed all over the place in there with no sunlight touching them, obviously. But yeah. Well, cool. So I guess my next question for you is, or end with this one. What are you for your Tim Salmon collection? Anybody that watches the podcast knows your Tim Salmon collection is like ridiculous, and I don't think you really showed a whole lot off. I mean, you're one of those guys where I can ask you about like a parallel for a card and be like, hey, is this thing worth looking into? And you're like, okay, first of all, yes, I have that. Second of all, this is the gist on it. Here's the skinny on it. You got just about everything you can think of. Well-rounded collection. What's the goal for the Tim Salmon collection going forward? Are you going to kind of put that a little bit further back now that you've pretty much peaked, or what's the plan?
So it's basically just boiled down to the rare stuff that it's still on my top 10. Like, just because I got the gold 24 karat, I still want the 98 essential now. I still, that's like my number one. And you still have all these just random rare, like all the flare masterpieces, ultra masterpieces. If that ever popped up, I would go for them. I would go for the one of one Tim Salmon masterpiece,
Right.
if they ever pop up. And so it's just, those are all like in the back of my head. Like if they pop up, I'll go for them. If my rare stuff pops up, I'll go for them. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go for the base. I'm not go for the stuff that doesn't have a wow factor for me.
Right.
I am a super collector, but I'm like a picky super collector, you know? So
yeah, I hear you.
I don't just want to have cards that just sit there and don't do anything for me. Because I dabbled with that and I realized that's not for me. And some people it is, and that's great, but for me it's not. And I think as a result, it'll just kind of be, if I see a cool Tim Salmon that I don't have, I'll get it. I'm not done collecting. I just am going to be really picky, and I want the cool stuff. If it's $1 and I don't have it and it's really cool, I want it. If it's a base card that looks boring, I'm probably going to pass on it. So I think just right now I'm focusing on that set that I want to finish. And, if some cool Franks pop up, cool, so be it. I might get some Franks. I kind of have slowed down on the Nomar, Andrew, Paul O'Neill, King Caminiti, just because, like I said, I'm in a lull. Frank still gives me feelings, and Tim still gives me feelings. But the other guys, I kind of don't want to just waste my money on right now. I may, in 6 months, I may change my mind and get back into Andrew Jones or whatever. I'm not going to get rid of them, but just right now, when I'm looking at eBay, it feels more like a chore when I go through the Andrew. So I actually deleted Andrew Jones save search, and I still have the Nomar, but I look at it. So that to me is like kind of a red flag. So I'm not going to look at those if it feels like a chore.
Right.
So that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Joshua had a comment for you. I'll let you read that. I don't know what he's talking about, so I'm curious. Want an explanation, man?
Yeah.
What's the what titanium? Is that an insert he's talking about? Oh, right. The molten metal, right?
Yeah. That's in my top 5, I think. That's one of my favorite sets. So if I could come across that, there's 50 of them, so that and Prime Choice Reserve.
I still can't believe that thing hasn't shown up, man. That's nuts. But that card, it doesn't show up of anybody, let alone Tim Salmon. I just think that's why I think some of your big time pickups are so much more monumental than others. Like, no offense to Alex Rodriguez, Griffey collectors, Frank, Nomar, even Nomar. Some of these big time cards, Jeter, those are going to pop up because they're going to sell so well. So, when you get a Salmon of that caliber, that's a big deal, because it's who the heck just sat around like, I think I'm going to post my Tim Salmon cards now. Like, nobody's thinking that, because they don't know that you're out there, like they don't know that there's a guy or two out there that'll buy them. So I think that honestly, when you snag cards like that, it's not that it takes anything away from, guys that are in a lot of insert sets that sell well, but it definitely is a pretty big deal. So I'm excited. I actually went back and watched that video that you took of me when you pulled out the 24 karat. I still get excited watching that, because that was as genuine as the reaction as you're going to get from me, and I was completely shocked. I was not ready for that, but I plan on having another moment like that or two, hopefully. And that's what, again, to go back on what you said, that's the coolest thing about the podcast is the friendships that we formed throughout the last 6 months. I mean, we've got to go to the National together. I get more excited about my collection when I'm talking to you and Alan and any other guests that we have on here. It just gets me invigorated, to dig deeper. But I have some cards I was going to show the podcast people that I've gotten excited about lately, but you kind of told me that you've been in a little bit of a lull. So I'm not going to just go through, but I have a couple I want to ask you about if you found them of Tim Salmon or if you were as aware of them, if that's cool with you at the end of the podcast here.
Yeah.
But I mean, before we start, I wanted to be remiss to not show off this monster of a card from 1991 Upper Deck. I pulled that. I got you, man. I actually pulled this card out of a pack all those years ago. And after seeing the Muhammad Ali, I'm like, all right, you know what? I got to get a hologram. $2 free shipping, baby. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love this.
I will never turn down a hologram. I will look at those all day.
You remember, I mean, too bad Alan's not on here, but Pavel Bure was the man back for me. So if I ever got into hockey, he would be the guy I would collect. But anyway, I knew you weren't ready for that, and so I had to bust that out. Oh, man. Did Greg freeze on us? Is he there? You there, Greg? All right.
Hello.
All right, good. So anyway, I know Tim Salmon's not in this, but I know who does have a hologram, and I know it's sitting right next to you, right? It has to be, right? No, maybe not. All right. Is it there? That thing's has literally, I feel like we need like a meme shirt to put that on. Here it is, baby. Look at that thing. Love it.
I can't get it to shine.
Yeah. It's not.
Where's my shine?
That thing's got like a following, man. Like people watch the podcast. I know they sit and wait, frothing at the mouth for that card to show up. There you go. Oh man, that's awesome. We were all joking about picking one of those up ourselves, and I was like, nah, I know exactly what card I'm going to get because I pulled I don't know why. I mean, obviously I can tell you what happened to my hockey card collection, but it's a sad story. So there you go. Now it's shining better. Look. There it is. Yep. Awesome, dude.
But it was cool to see that at the National, like in the dollar box.
It was. Why I didn't get one for myself too, I don't know. I feel like I passed up a golden opportunity there to have like a centerpiece of my collection, but maybe next time. Yeah. This thing's been
too. I was like, look, they got one.
Well, it became like an animal of its own because it like I remember like I'm interviewing these people on the podcast. It's really serious. And often like the bottom, I see this right here, and you're just like going like this, like for like 2 minutes. Like, what is he got there? You know? So anyways, that's funny stuff. I've been looking into Pacific a lot. How many of the what do they call it? Platinum blue parallels of Tim Salmon do you have in your collection? Do you have a few of them?
I think I have like 2, honestly. I don't have many. They're there. I think I'm at like 2 though.
I mean, were you quite aware at the rarity of them? I think, that's a hot topic that we probably shouldn't go too far down. Other than the fact that you look at the odds of them and it's 1 out of 73 packs. So if you look at boxes, that's, 1 out of 4 because there's 72 packs and 3 boxes, but 1 on 4 average. Did you realize how rare they were when you picked them up, or did you grab them like you did at the beginning of your collection when you just were kind of picking everything up?
So I think I got 1 in like a lot, and then the other I picked up because you guys showing off, something, and I was like, I would like to get that one. And I ended up paying, I think, like $4 for it, Burbank or somebody.
Yeah.
So it's just, I know now, like, the rarity of them. And it's just been those, like, back burner things. Like, there are certain Pacific, like, inserts or parallels that I'll look for, and they're not available. And then I forget. I don't write them down or anything, and I forget about them.
Right.
So, like, a lot of those salmons are just not available. They're not anywhere. And so I kind of forget about them in the moment. So, I that's just where Tim Salmon is those rare Pacific cards are just in the wind. Same with the Prime Choice Reserve. Like, they just aren't there. So I don't have access to them. And it's just one of those, like, in the moment, I look for it. If it's there, I'll buy it. If it's not, I forget about it until I see it again.
Right. It's just kind of funny to compare and contrast. We do this a lot with our player collections, is that I can't find the rare cards, the unnamed card that hopefully, but no, I mean, like that card, the 24 karat, the PMG, like those cards don't show up for my player, but yet they always show up for Salmon. And then you flip it and you say, well, the platinum blues are out there of A-Rod in every set, but Salmon has none or one or two. And so it's really interesting how those cards are probably out there, but they're just not listed.
Well, yeah, that's where you get into it's worth posting the Salmon PMG because you'll get money out of it, but it's not worth posting the Salmon Platinum Blue, where it is worth posting the A-Rod Platinum Blue.
Right.
So that's, people don't want to waste the time to post them on eBay or wherever because they're common box fire for them.
Right. Well, and that's what I hear. You have to see this comment. This is to you, by the way, from Snoop. Yeah. Yeah, Snoop's getting into collecting stuff. Dude, that video was the lighting was like for the first time ever, your lighting was perfect in your top 30, dude. It was awesome. You had that sunlight coming right in on you.
Yeah, I rolled up all the blinds. I turned on all the lights. I had to wear a hat because it was so sunny.
Yeah, those turned out to be great. Those top 30 videos, man. There was just some, and it accomplished exactly what you had said, because somebody in the group was like, "Why would we do this? We already did top 10." And you're like, "Well, that you're going to see a lot of variety in these videos, and every single one was different, like significantly different. Nobody's was like in a row. Like the top 10 were great, but a lot of them were the same. And so you started it off, and it went from there for sure. It was good."
Yeah, the top 10, you're always going to see like the same 5 or 6 because of the rarity, and everybody loves them. Like they're just staples of a collection. Whereas you get to 30, and then you really got some wiggle room to play because, my 11 card is going to be different than your 12 card. So it's nice to see those because that's when you really get into the meat and the potatoes of a player's collection.
Mm-hmm. And the stories behind them too. I mean, my personal favorite, which I actually watched again yesterday, was oh my gosh, I almost called him Jason. He is Jason, but I almost called him by his YouTube name. Good thing I didn't do that. Mr. Crazy Intro Rock Song, and then he's like super relaxed. But yeah, Jason's Nomar video was probably one of my favorites, just because and you know why? Because he, like, I was watching him go through the cards, and in my mind I'm like, is he going to show the card I think he's going to show? It better be in here. And he's getting down there, and then he just like smiles all big, and I'm like, yep, that card's definitely here. It comes, and he showed it. But his was cool because he had a bunch of he had a Focus Pocus in the magnetic case. He had a Topps Tech insert in a mag case. Like he, was showing off cards that nobody else had. And then from there, we had some Griffey people. We had, we had Andy who spearheaded the whole thing. I think it was just overall, it was a really fun, idea. And I think a lot of people enjoyed it. Hopefully lots of people that were getting into the 90s, like Snoop, he's getting into Tony Gwynn. He could look at your video and go all over and find all the cards that he could want to pick up. Cause that's how I found out about the majority of my A-Rods at first, was going through and like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how beautiful this card is, because the scans on eBay suck, So that was a big thing. I think
eBay, the scan eBay, don't do a lot of cards justice. So I think YouTube videos for showing off are really helpful for people, because you see the true shine, the true nature of the card. So, I hope that our videos can be, an influence for others on helping kickstart or helping a collection keep moving forward. Because I remember getting back into 2017 with finding the 90s group and seeing all those videos and the top 10 that you put up, help kickstart and spearhead my collection in a direction. So I hope that we can have those videos for other people as well.
I remember when you posted that video. You know how when you see a picture of somebody and you're like, I wonder what this guy's going to sound like. You sounded nothing like I thought. I was like, wow, that was way different, because you had a very deep voice and I couldn't see you. So I was like, man, this guy totally surprised me because you were showing off was it your No Mars? No, it was your Tim Salmon, right? It was your Tim Salmon that you showed off, I think.
Yeah. Well, it was a bunch of, it was like whatever top 10 cards I liked. I think it was a random mishmash of Tim Salmon, Frank, and whoever else.
Yeah, our collections have definitely changed a lot since that day, for sure. I mean, that was a year and a half ago, something like that. But I was going to show off. I don't have to showcase this. Tim Salmon is in the Millennium Marks, isn't he, or the Donruss signature? Doesn't Tim have one of these? I can show you a little bit.
Not that one.
He's not a 97 Donruss signature at all. I mean, I feel like they had everybody in there.
He's got like a unsigned proof, but he doesn't have the autograph one of that.
Any idea what the story was on that? Did they just couldn't get him to agree to sign, or what?
Yeah, I know they had the proofs. They've got like the different colors. I don't know the backstory on it, but he didn't sign any of them. So,
that's interesting. I wonder if those are going to pop. Have you seen those pop up before, or do you just know that they exist?
Yeah. They're ridiculous. Like they want like 75 a piece. I'd pay $3 a piece. So,
right. Well, you do have some pretty cool autos that Alex doesn't have, especially like the in-person autographs. I think those are really cool for a guy like Tim Salmon. Alex signs everything. So for me, I'd pass those up. Whereas for you, you're able to go and pick out, an in-person autograph, and it's probably got a cool story behind it. And so I think that's something pretty cool that you get to go after that. I necessarily don't. You know me, I don't go after a lot of autographs. I'm starting to, but I don't really go after them. But one last card I have a question for. I didn't realize how cool these were until, again, you get them in person and you realize just how amazing the cards are. Is Tim Salmon in any Topps Gallery sets?
In any what?
Topps Gallery? Any of those sets from 98?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, well, the 98 proofs are really, really cool cards. These ones right here. And they got like a canvasy feel to them, and they're out of 100 and let's see if it grabs it. There we go, out of 125. So.
And that's 98?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're awesome.
He's got a few gallery cards, but I don't have any of those. So I don't know. I've never even seen those for Salmon.
Is he in 98? I feel like he would be because the set's over 100, right?
Yeah. I don't know what year I have. Because I just have the base of the gallery. I don't have any of the parallels. Because they got the player private edition.
Yep.
And so Burbank has one for like $8 that I've just not ever pulled the trigger on. But I've not seen anything like that for Salmon. If I have, I would have definitely bought it because that looks really cool. So not come across that. I hope he's in it because that looks awesome. Give me something else to buy.
I think it's not just the picture doesn't do a lot for me, but when you see the texture of the card, it's like a thick watercolor paper. Yeah. And it really, I have the player's private issue out of 250 and I was like, nah. But if I could mention another podcast, Patrick Greeno does a podcast and he had Rodney on and they were just going real quick through some cards that people really don't know about that are really cool. And Rodney brought up that card right there, the proofs out of 125. He said they're super unique. They got the texture of them is awesome. And I had passed one up probably about 4 or 5 months ago. It was in a lot of 2 other cards that I still don't have for like $30. And I was like, man, that'll be cheaper. Nope. Somebody scooped it up. So I have made it a point that I would overpay if I saw the card, and I had to go higher than maybe I wanted to on that one, but I needed to have it. And I'm glad I did. So I think all the Topps galleries, their parallels are really cool. I mean, they're some of the coolest base cards. They've got a great feel to them. and then you go and add a numbered card to the mix. And I think you've got, some cards that, every player collector should go look to grab, because they have a significantly larger set than like, EX or Flair or something small like that. And if Tim Salmon's in Flair, he's got to be in this, so.
Yeah. Like I said, the player private issue, I've been meaning to buy because the Salmon has a really cool picture on it. But I've never seen the canvas 100 of them. So I have to look to see if that's a thing for him or not, because I would get one.
I think it is. I think it would be out there. They just don't show up at all because they're so low numbered. A card from 98 being numbered under 150 or under 200 is a pretty significant card. So and that's pretty cool. But yeah, I just want to show off a couple of those. I am kind of curious to see, you have my goal for my collection is to have a well-rounded collection, that if somebody comes in and wants to see like an overall picture of the 90s, they can see something really high end, but they can also see some of these cards that nobody picks up because they're cheap, but deserve the recognition. And so I think you and I are similar there. And I like to see if you've heard of some of these, because I just find out about them and I'm like, I wonder if Greg's like already had these floating around. And to hear that you don't have some of these still is kind of crazy. And your number of Tim Salmon cards is so high still. Pretty nuts.
Yeah. Well, there's always going to be stuff that is not posted that I'm missing. That's the good thing about cards, is you can come across some stuff that you just didn't really even know about, or you didn't do enough research about, that now pops up and you really want. So that's always going to be a thing. I'm never going to know everything. So I appreciate that, because that gives me little surprises here and there to look forward to when they pop up. So I'll look into that and see if Salmon has one.
Cool. Well, I hope you're able to find it. And you said he's got a cool picture, and that's a decent picture, Alex, but I can imagine, like a picture does make a card. I think that would be a fun episode to go for in the future, is, highlighting cards and talking about why we like that card over others. Because for me, I think after doing some videos, I figured out what jersey I liked Alex to wear, what he's wearing on his face and head, or just, like the position that he's in, what really makes a card great. Just like your favorite Pinnacle Inside from 97. That's your favorite picture on a card, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when Sam camera in his hands. Really gets me going.
Yeah, it's right underneath the holograms. I know, like it's right underneath there, man.
Yeah.
But well,
down.
We're gonna wrap it up here. But thanks for the people that watched live. We really enjoyed it. I know we didn't show off too many cards or anything, but we hope that you've enjoyed the podcast so far.
I got one mail day.
Oh, you do? Oh, hey. Dude, those cards are so... Hey, I have a question. How are those different from the baseball version? Because I think I see a little bit of a design difference. Did you notice it?
Did I notice?
Are they different in any way than the baseball version? Because like if you look at the top of that card, it seems like there's more black in the football version. Hey, putting Greg on the spot here. Did you really find it that fast? Holy smokes. Yeah, I see the difference there, Greg?
Yeah.
Awesome. What about the backs? Are they the same? That's pretty cool. So they kept those kind of the same. Looks like there's more lighter on the player's face, but that's about the only thing I noticed. Is it darker on the baseball card?
No, they look pretty much the same.
So the only thing they did differently is
the berry.
Go ahead.
Berry's a little more black on the top, but for the most part, this the Frank looks a little lighter as well in the middle.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, they definitely use a little different color scheme on those.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll have to have an episode where we talk about that interview that, I can't remember the name of the channel. Honestly, it's escaping me right now, but it was a fantastic interview with a Fleer designer. And she and her husband designed many of the cards that we love from Fleer, from 96 all the way to about 2001 or so. And for me, that was a great episode because that Fleer metal set was my all-time favorite. I have the whole master set of that, and I love looking through there at all the designs. And anyway, we'll have to talk about that later. But that's a really cool mail day because every time I see you post a Barry Sanders or send me a picture of a Barry Sanders card, I'm like, where is the jersey at? Like, I want to see that thing framed with like a picture of you with Barry on the corner or something. You know, that's going to be a really cool piece when you get that done.
I'm getting there. We'll get to
it. Okay. Well, the fact that we got to share that with you, man, was awesome. So, anyways, next week for viewers to look forward to, we're going to have some fun with Andy Burkett, who I had on a Side Credentials podcast, and then Chuck, who was on one of our, I think he was on episode 6 or 7. He had a lot of really cool stories of his Ripken collection and stuff that he had picked up since '98. So we're going to have them on, and we're going to do a straight up Pacific showcase. Now, we've talked about Pacific before, but I think there's a lot of intricate designs that company had come out with that nobody else was doing. And so I think no matter who you collect, whether it's Ray Ordonez, Tim Salmon, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, Cal Ripken, you have some cool innovations that you can look into within that company that you and I can, all 4 of us will be able to show off and talk about. So that'll be really fun for sure to do that next weekend. And then from there, we're going to, keep trying to get, guests back on. Quick update on Alan. I don't know, a lot of people are asking about him. Like, where is he? What's he doing? He's transitioning jobs. So he's pretty busy. Greg's got his back and helping him out, trying to keep that passion going for for Alan. But we wish him the best and hope that he comes back all invigorated about collecting after the new year. That's my hope for him, at least. So that'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, thanks for taking the time out, man. Thanks for taking the time out to chat. Again, thanks for coming up with the idea for the podcast. I'm really enjoying it. And we got to have you host again, man. That was fun. That was a lot of fun not being in charge of all the questions.
I'm sure. Less stressful. No, I had fun with it. So we'll do it again. And I look forward to next week. I think that'll be a good episode.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're just going to show cards.
Guys.
Yep. Take care, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend.